was so excited about Donald J. Trump becoming our 47th president. We said, look, we ought to all be together and enjoy this time. If we're not going to D.C., let's be in Bossier and celebrate at Silver Star, and that's what we chose to do. We had a maxed out crowd and just loved being together and being happy.
That was Jane Smith, and so is that. Jane, thanks for being here.
I'm glad to be here.
We appreciate it so much. That was Inauguration Day, January 20th of 2025, Inauguration Day for Donald J. Trump, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But for those of you who aren't aware of who Jane Smith is, and I can't imagine there's anybody that doesn't know you, any political thing going on around Shreveport, Bossier, Jane Smith is involved in. You've worn so many hats. When I first met you, I just knew you as the woman that ran the Bossier City Republican Women's Group. But tell us about all the other things you've done.
Well, I've really been blessed. I've had some great jobs. Of course, I started out, most of my professional career has been in education. So I was a teacher, assistant principal, and then superintendent of schools in Bossier. And then ran for the legislature and was elected without opposition in 2000, served and termed out in 2012, and did some legislative affairs work for the Department of Revenue, where I worked with the legislative assistants in all of the offices in the House and Senate. So I knew a lot of them already. And so for the last 6 years, I'm beginning my 7th year as president of the Republican Women of Bossier, and we've been real active. It's been an awesome experience.
I'll say it's real active. You get all the politicians, all the state representatives, state senators, everybody wants to come and speak with your group, don't they?
We do. We have about 100 in our group now. We have men that join as associate members. So we have a wonderful group of people that come, and we have great speakers, and I served with a lot of them and know them through the years, and so it's just been real good for us.
Let's talk now a little bit about Inauguration Day, and Greg, go ahead and roll this video as we talk here. I joined your group on Inauguration Day over at Silver Star in Bossier City, and I mean, like you can see here, this is a sold out group, as you said. I mean, that room was full.
Yeah.
And that was just to watch it on television.
I know. That was great. Oh, my goodness.
There's the Trump sign. And at one point, the power went out, I think.
Yeah. And 5 minutes to 8 minutes can seem like a lifetime, when you're. And but fortunately, just about the time Trump was about to raise his hand and be sworn in, the power came back on, and it was awesome. It felt like when we were there, it felt like we were actually being sworn in ourselves. It was like we were there. And so it was a fun day, and I said, we need to celebrate. We've worked hard for this. We've hoped and prayed that that Donald Trump would be the 47th president. And there we are.
Well, and you see people standing and just clapping at the TV. They were so excited for Trump to retake the control in the White House. And I mean, gosh, this is such a strong group that you have. Yeah. People really want to show, as I said, really want to show up and show out, I guess, at your group.
I think most of them know that the way our group operates is they can come and they can feel comfortable giving their platform, speaking about what they're doing. They're going to be well received. They're going to be treated with respect, and we're very civil. Yeah. And
you may not always agree with them. But
we may not always agree on everything, but we remain civil. And that's sort of what I think I'm hoping our country can come back to is we need to become civil when we're involved in governmental affairs or in political adventures and that kind of thing.
All right, you can get out of that video now, Greg, if you would, and just come back to us here in the studio. But yeah, you mentioned an important thing, I think, becoming civil. And the other night, we saw the president gives his address to the nation, and you saw what happened there.
Yeah.
Our Speaker of the House, I say, well, he is our Speaker of the House,
Yeah.
but we think of him as ours because he's from Bossier
Absolutely.
Parish. Mike Johnson actually had to eject a Texas Congressman, Al Green, from the House chamber because he was being so disruptive. That's never happened before in the history of America, U.S. politics.
No, I was very proud of our speaker. It was evident that the disruption was going to continue. Had it just been a one-time outburst, but you could see, and the speaker knew that he had to get control of the chamber, and that's what he did. And the House rules. He should not have even had to do that.
Sure.
But unfortunately, when people act that way, then they've got to be dismissed from the chamber, and he did exactly the right thing. And it's unfortunate. I mean, I've seen through the years, I've watched many of these, and whether you disagree or agree with who is president, you stand and you applaud as they enter out of respect for the position.
Of course,
the
yes.
President of the United States of America. And as you probably saw, the opposition chose not to stand for and applaud for anything. For things that were good for our country.
Right.
And of course for DJ, our little guy that we all think is so great. He's just, it was just a time that everybody could have joined in and applauded and given him the applause that he deserved. But, it was a great night for Donald Trump, and I think it was a great night for the Republicans to be able to hear that plan laid out of what he's going to do.
Nothing like that ever happens in your groups, right? I mean, everybody's always enthusiastic there.
It's a group of like-minded people and that's another reason I think people enjoy coming, even if they're coming as a visitor to our club, is because we remain civil and we remain respectful. Even if we don't agree on everything, I think they feel comfortable coming to our meetings. We have enough stressful situations in our life, and politics has become a little bit uncivil in many cases, and I think we're trying to make a difference in that.
Well, obviously you're always going to have some opposition in politics.
Sure.
And you have two different sides, but it used to be that you could just disagree and then still be friends, and it doesn't seem like that's possible anymore, is it?
Yeah, that's unfortunate. When I first went to the legislature, we could vote we voted differently, but when we left the Capitol, we were still friends,
right.
And we still could communicate, and that's something that I hope that it doesn't mean that we give over on our principles.
Sure.
It just means that we act with, I would think, with integrity and dignity, and with, as I keep using the word, just act civil.
That's for sure. Let's talk about, there's a big Senate race getting ready to start happening. I guess it's already sort of happening in Louisiana. Senator Cassidy will be up for re-election. To put it bluntly, a lot of people were unhappy with him, with his actions at the end of the first Trump term. He voted to impeach him. With
us begging him not to vote for conviction.
Yeah, and so a lot of people are still unhappy with him. I feel like he's been trying to do everything he can to get back in the good graces of people in Louisiana, but do you see that happening?
Well, I think what we need to discuss first is the fact that we're going to have closed primaries for the first time, and I think that's a good thing. So Republicans will have a chance to pick the Republican that they feel is most capable and most deserving to serve, and will be the best person to represent Louisiana, our values. And that one person, that candidate, will run against the Democrat. So that's going to be an interesting time. Personally, I think that it's going to be really hard for Republicans that watched that happen. And of course, Senator Cassidy was censored by the state party. And you know, I hope he does. I hope he does support the president now. It seems like that's what he's doing. I don't know that he ever thought Donald J. Trump would ever be president again, and now he's having to deal with that. And he knows that that the president has a mandate, and especially from Louisiana.
Well, that's for sure.
What a mandate!
Yeah,
70%, I believe, statewide. So it was pretty unbelievable. So we're going to see. It's going to be very interesting to see how that all plays out. I know in a couple of months, most everybody that's going to jump in that race will be in, and we will see how that. We know that I still call him Dr. Fleming, but of course he's the treasurer now, and he's run statewide elections. He's going to be running for sure, and then we'll see who else gets in that race. But I think the good thing is the Republicans of the state of Louisiana are going to be able to pick the person they feel best to be in a runoff with a Democrat.
By the way, Treasurer Fleming will be on with us next week on this show. So he's a good guy. I love talking to him. Of course, he held all kinds of jobs. He was a congressman. And he was deputy chief of staff, I think, in the first Trump administration. So he's got a lot of stories he can tell.
Yeah, he does.
Kind of some neat stuff. But well, let's not speculate. I've got a couple other names we can throw out there.
You know, the race is in 2026, so there'll be a lot of time to see what happens.
Yeah, there is a lot of time, but it feels like it's already underway.
It's kicking off.
Yeah, for sure.
They're running polls.
For sure. So tell me about how the sausage is made down there in Baton Rouge. You had a hand in just about everything you could do down there.
Yeah. Well, I think you have to go with the understanding. Let's look at history. When I first got there, on the House side, there were maybe 35 Republicans.
That was it, huh?
Mm-hmm. And so we weren't in charge much of being a deciding factor on much legislation. Mm-hmm. And so we worked through that process. I served under 3 governors. Mike Foster's second term, I came in 2000, and then Kathleen Blanco, and then I served 1 term under Bobby Jindal. And all of them had different methods of trying to get the votes that they wanted for certain things to pass.
Okay.
The more we gained in popularity as Republicans, we finally, my last term in office, last 4 years, we had 50 to 51 Republicans, which meant that we were a deciding factor. Mm-hmm. And that year I was the chairman of the House Republican delegation. Okay. So we had 50 to 51 Republicans at all times, which meant for us to have a significant change in any or control of any legislation, we had to all stick together, which is sort of like what Speaker Johnson is dealing with right now. It's a very slim margin. Now it's improved. Now it's like 70, 71 maybe. I don't know how many, because I can't, some leave and come back, that kind of thing. But right now they have a super majority in the House and the Senate. So that's great for the state. But again, I think we all know that all Republicans don't all think exactly alike. So part of the job in getting legislation passed is to try to explain to all, don't leave anybody out, try to explain to your delegation and try to keep them focused on being together on something. Because if you all divide, then you lose on the legislation, and you have to that's why sometimes you have to change and you have to have amendments in your legislation to get it to pass. Now, you have to make the decision, is the amendment, the change that is being made to my bill, is it worth making the change, or does it gut the bill? And so in that process, nothing ever usually ends up the way it starts out. And that's something that people have to understand. We used to laugh and say that maybe a bill left the House looking like the pelican, but it came back looking like, from the Senate, looking like a flamingo. And we had to, and it had to go to conference, and people had to decide, I'm going to go with that, I'm not going to go with that.
Right.
So it's a long process that begins and ends right at the very end of session, usually.
Yeah, and if you don't like you can just pull your bill. Right?
Oh yeah, many times that's what happens when someone gets an amendment on, let's say that basically does the opposite of what you wanted your bill to do, or it guts it. You just say return it to the calendar, and then you don't ever bring it back unless you can get them to agree to take that amendment off.
Yeah. Well, how does the governor? You said the governor, those that you work for, 3.
Oh yeah.
They all have different styles.
Yes.
What does the governor do to try to apply pressure to get what he wants?
Well, they call you,
Yeah, I'm sure,
and send you messages, and they have people on the floor that are floor leaders that come and talk to you and talk to you about how important it is for you to support what the governor wants. All of them have a little bit different method, but the 4th floor is where the governor is located.
Yes, he is.
And you get called to the 4th floor if you need to be talked to.
You feel like you're getting called up to the principal's
That's
office?
exactly right. You get called to the 4th floor, and you know that you're going to get a talking to.
Well, you should be familiar with the principal's office,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Well, how did your background in education prepare you for what went on in Baton Rouge?
I had to, when you're superintendent of schools and principal, you're almost like the mayor of a little town, because you're in and among your constituents all the time at the school, and then when you're superintendent, you're dealing with a board that you have to convince that what you feel like is best for the school system. And I was very fortunate. I had a great board to work with, and I think we accomplished so much during that time. It was a great time, but it teaches you, I think, what it did for me was how to get my point across and convince people to vote for what I wanted them to vote for, but also to be able to work with. You have to be able to work with people, and so that was good for me. When I went to the legislature, I had been the superintendent. And I'll use a school analysis here. I walked into the Capitol and I looked around and everybody was talking. It didn't seem like they were paying attention.
Right.
You've been down there many times. You know,
the first time I went
how
down
do they
there,
know what they're voting
exactly. I'm like, what is going on here?
Yeah, and so I looked around and they were on the phone. They weren't listening to the speaker, and I said, being a former principal and superintendent, I said, I think I'm going to have to get this group in order. And
you did.
It didn't take me long to figure out as a freshman, when you get there as a freshman, you feel like you're not in charge of anything. You've been, as superintendent, I felt like I was in charge of every blade of grass. When I got to the Capitol, I was going, my goodness. But you work through the process, you learn the process, you make good friends, and I tell you something that was really good for me. You learn the people that you can go to and get the answer and get the truth. You have to be able to trust people to give you the truth, because you can't be an expert in every field.
No, of course not. Yeah.
You've got to be able to find people that you trust. And so that was good for me.
Well, this group of lawmakers we have in Northwest Louisiana, this is a pretty good group, isn't
Absolutely.
it?
They're awesome. And they worked, this group, I think, it just made me feel so good the other night when we had them all come and speak. It really appears that they are working together. They're not fighting amongst themselves. They have a goal that they're all working toward, and boy, is that ever good. That's helpful.
It is. You mentioned something about the try to get everybody on the same page. And there's the left and there's the right.
Yeah.
The left is always on the same page.
They are.
Always.
Yeah.
Whether you like it or hate it,
they
are basically in lockstep.
Yeah.
But on the right, that's not the case.
That's why I think it's such a hard job. I mean, I do think that Republicans have always prided themselves, I guess, in being independent thinkers, and that's fine. I mean, we all have a job to represent the constituency that sent us there. We have a representative form of government, a republic, and So we're representing our constituents. And so some of them have different constituencies than we do. And when you have that many Republicans now in the House, it is a hard job to keep, when I say get on the same page, I mean get all the Republicans on the same page. Sometimes a few Democrats will come across and vote with Republicans, and sometimes Republicans will vote with some of the Democrats. But
as it should be, really.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you have to vote to represent your constituency, and that's where I think we shouldn't be upset with someone because they say, look, I'm representing my constituents. But when it comes down to Republican principles and what our foundation and what we believe in, I think that's when it's really important that the Republicans stick together.
No question about that. No question about that. And there's been some problems with that in recent times, but it seems to be taking care of itself.
I think when Governor Landry was elected without even a runoff, there was a pretty big mandate that Republicans needed to get organized, and they needed to support his agenda as long as he continues on with the philosophy that he campaigned on, and I think he definitely is doing that.
Talk a little bit about Governor Landry and the things that he's been doing, and whether you're pleased with him or not. But obviously you are pretty pleased. I am.
I think he's moving in the direction that he campaigned on, and he's trying to get. One of the things that's similar to what Donald Trump, our president, is doing, is he already said we're going to have our own department of DOJ. We're going to, and that's important. We're going to start looking at where the waste is in state government, because there's some waste in state government too.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And so I thought that was neat that he already formed his own DOJ to start looking at that. He hit the ground running. You remember how quickly he started with the things that he wanted to do. And I think that his energy level, his work ethic, he's going to be, he knows that he's got a certain amount of time that he's got to get things done, just like Donald Trump. And I think that's what you see in comparison. He works very well with Donald Trump. And they like each other.
Yeah, they do.
That's going to be important.
He's big friends with Trump Jr., right?
Yes. Oh, yeah. They alligator hunt together. So, it's great when you've got a governor of your state that is like-minded with the President of the United States. I think we're going to see some great things happen in our state because of that relationship.
Was there a little bit, I don't want to say fear, but was there a little bit of a belief that Landry was just elected and he might go be part of the Trump administration there?
Well, it was certainly rumored. But I think that Governor Landry is on a mission. He had a mission, and I think he felt an obligation. I'm going to stay right here in Louisiana and do the things that I said I wanted to do when I was running, and I think that's exactly what he's doing. And it's going to be exciting to see what happens over the next few years.
So what's next on the calendar for the Bossier Republican Women?
Well, I just got off the phone with Sheriff Whittington.
Okay.
And he's going to be coming to speak to us March 25th. And I think he's got a great story to tell of the statistics of what he's been dealing with with regard to crime and the decrease, and some good figures that he's going to tell us about. It'll sort of be like, instead of the State of the Union, it'll be like the state of
the parish?
The sheriff's office in Bossier Parish.
State of the office, okay.
And I think that's a good thing. We need to continue to work with what's going on at the local level. But look, we're going to turn right around and have state, local, and federal. So be on the watch out for 2025. It's going to be an exciting time.
I always have to, when I get there, I can only stay for a little while when I come to the meetings. I usually try to grab some interviews with some of the guests that you have there, and then you have dinner, and then they all speak. By the time they're ready to speak, I got to go. So I don't really hear them speak. But when they do they take questions from the audience and stuff?
Most of the time they say, hey, I'd love, if I haven't answered your questions, we'd be glad to. If there's more than one speaker, we'll take questions. And And yeah, sometimes we have, I'll tell you, when our state superintendent comes, Cade Brumley, he always saves time. He said, I want to save enough time for questions, and he does a great job of fielding questions, and we'll have him back again in 2025.
Do you ever get, the discussions ever get heated?
I wouldn't call it heated, but I would say that we have questions that someone needs an explanation or clarity on. I need this clarified for me. And you may see that more on the local level. And I'm sure Chef Whittington will have some of those kind of questions. He always takes questions about how are we reducing crime, and are we putting our money, our tax dollars to work at the best. When we have our city council members after that election's over, I'm sure you're going to hear some questions from the audience on that will, I think, be pinpointing certain things that they want to see done, meaning our citizens want to see happen at the local level. But then, of course, we were fortunate to have Mike Johnson, our speaker, come, and it was like a closed event because of the security that you have to have.
Right.
And we hope to have him back. And of course, as we move into the election for the Senate, you'll see all of those running for office in the Senate.
All of them?
Well, most of them.
Well, look, let's, I'm not going to avoid it. It's okay, right?
I mean, look, we like I said, I remember the last time I was talking with you about that, we left an open door for Senator Cassidy to follow the lead of Senator John Kennedy and vote no on convicting Donald J. Trump, and he took the opposite approach.
And okay, we'll just let it lie there, and we'll see what happens as that election plays out.
Yes.
You guys have some exciting stuff planned. I always love coming to your meetings. It's always
We love
fun.
to have you, and we really appreciated you covering Inauguration Day. That was a special day, and all the people love you. They all know you, Jeff.
Well,
they all want you
that.
to come. They love seeing you come in. It's a good thing to have news media come and cover us.
Well, it's a great group. You have great guests. There's no reason not to come, really.
You're welcome anytime.
Well, I appreciate that, and that's a good. We've gone our half hour here. Can you believe it?
Yeah, that's great.
It goes by fast.
It's great to be with you.
Well, we do appreciate you being here, Jane. We'll have you back, okay?
Okay, great.
All right, Jane Smith, the head of the Bossier Republican Women's Group, former state legislator and Bossier Parish superintendent. I mean, so many hats. I can't even keep track of them all. This has been the app, which has nothing to do with computers. It stands for Arklatex, People and Politics. Thanks for watching, and have a good day, everybody.
All right. That was fun.